For decades, we have piled deficit upon deficit, mortgaging our future and our children's future for the temporary convenience of the present. To continue this long trend is to guarantee tremendous social, cultural, political, and economic upheavals. You and I, as individuals, can, by borrowing, live beyond our means, but for only a limited period of time. Why then should we think that collectively, as a nation, we're not bound by that same limitation?
I seriously question an increase in the Pentagon budget in the face of the department's recent Inspector General's report. How can we seriously consider a $50 billion increase in the defense budget when DOD's own auditors say the department cannot account for $2.3 trillion in transactions in 1 year alone?
My 03 budget calls for more than $48 billion in new defense spending.
More money for the Pentagon when its own auditors admit the military cannot account for 25% of what it already spends.
The American people are sick and tired of inflation when they go buy their gasoline or pay their medical bills. So
yeah, but you can't, Congressman. I mean, we've got a pretty good economy going here, right? I mean, we've got productivity soaring. We've got retail sales that are strong. We've got corporate earnings that for the 19th quarter are up double digit. We've got a market chasing highs. I mean, this isn't happening in a vacuum, right?
Yeah, that's nice, but when you have to borrow, my personal finances would be very good if I borrowed $1 million every month, but someday the bills will become due.
I would get rid of the inflation tax. It's a tax that nobody talks about. We live way beyond our means with a foreign policy we can't afford and an entitlement system that we have encouraged. We print money for it, the value of the money goes down, and poor people pay higher prices. That is a tax.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
So one of these days we're going to have to wake up, and I'm afraid we won't wake up until we go bankrupt, and we're approaching that time already. It's very constitutional, it's very traditional American.
A lot of times I'm asked now, where are you getting the support? How come you're doing so well on the internet? What's going on around here? And I said, well, it just might be that freedom is popular.
Follows the founding fathers, and besides, it follows the Constitution.
We should mind our own business and take the advice of the founders, and that is stay out of entangling alliances, don't get involved in nation building, and don't get involved in the internal affairs of other nations. Well, I would introduce this novel idea that we ought to follow the Constitution. There are still a few Americans that believe in it.
You want to get rid of big government. You want to reduce the government in our lives. And you also want to cut out the income tax. Now, I know a lot of people against the income tax, but I don't think anybody that I know believes that you can really have a government this strong and pay for things here without that tax.
Oh, no, you can't. You can't have a government like this without an income tax, but we don't want a government like this. This is not the kind of government that was designed by our founders of the country. It's not what was written in the Constitution. We've only had an income tax since 1913. If you want a welfare state, and if you want to police the world and pay for the defense of Japan and Germany, send foreign aid to the Soviet Union, you not only need the income tax, you need the Federal Reserve to print up the money when the deficit is accumulated. So we think the government should be much smaller. If government is small, then you don't need an income tax. The income tax only covers 38% of next year's budget.
If you were president, would you work to phase out the IRS?
Immediately.
That's what they call a softball.
And you can only do that if you change our ideas about what the role of government ought to be. If you think the government has to take care of us from cradle to grave, and if you think our government should police the world and spend hundreds of billions of dollars on a foreign policy that we cannot manage, you can't get rid of the IRS. But if you want to lower taxes, and if you want the government to quit printing the money to come up with the shortfall and cause all the inflation, you have to change policy.
I'm Ron Paul. I'm a congressman from Texas, serving in my 10th term. I am the champion of the Constitution.